Hi, I'm Rich with Inside HPC. We're here with the HPC User Forum, a series of conversations with their steering committee. And today my guest is Mike Bernhardt. Mike, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Rich. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, thank you, Mike. I guess, you've been on the steering committee for HPC User Forum for quite a while, and your current duties are the Exascale Computing Project with communications. Why don't we start at the beginning, though? How did you get into HPC?
Well, let's see. I started out my career in computing as a programmer, which didn't really last very long. I had fun with it, but I got more fascinated with computer operations and how the systems were built and how they worked. So I went down the path of a computer operations, became an instructor teaching computer operations internals on IBM 360 and 370 mainframes. Did a little stint as a computer operations manager and a data center manager. And that, the teaching aspect, if you will, Rich, is kind of a natural segue to storytelling, public relations, and marketing and communications. So it was around with some of the mini computer companies, I guess they were called back in those days, Prime Computer and Digital Equipment for a while. But in 1987, I joined Multiflow Computer, the company that brought the very long instruction word, the VLIW architecture, to market. And in 1988, first year with the company, first full year, I went off to Orlando, Florida for SC88, the first of the SC, the supercomputing conferences. Staffed a little 10 by 10 booth for Multiflow, had the first set of brochures and product flyers there, and got to see Seymour Cray do the keynote presentation that year. And I think I was pretty much instantly hooked. The passion of the few people compared to the SC conference today, but the passion of those people and Seymour Cray's inspiration and the conversations that I had with folks, I was hooked. And from that point on, I was kind of straight down that path of high performance computing or nothing.
Well, great, Mike. That's how you got into HPC. Can you tell us about your career after that?
Yeah, sure. But it's always been focused around strategic marketing and communications. I love storytelling, especially if I'm sitting around and I have a couple guys at a conference and a couple beers. It's a great thing to be. So I was always big on building relationships and helping others kind of figure out how to talk differently about the things they were doing. So any aspect of helping a company understand how to better tell a story. So after Multiflow abruptly closed their doors, I was recruited by Intel and went from Branford, Connecticut to Beaverton, Oregon to join Intel with a group at that time, which was called Intel Scientific Computers, run by Justin Ratner, an Intel fellow out there. And it was really an amazing group and an amazing time. I mean, if you think about it, Intel was kind of leading parallel supercomputing at that point in time. I helped manage the launch of the Intel IPSC 860, the Intel Touchstone Delta system at Caltech, and then the Intel Paragon supercomputers. And the activities that I led, the press tours and the industry analyst meetings, and working with the actual user community through the Intel Supercomputer Users Group, really gave me just this incredible base of contacts, networks, friends, who I still have many of today, right? Well, but after a few years at Intel, there was that awkward period of time when Intel was moving away from building the production of parallel supercomputers. And I decided to leave the company and form a marketing and communications agency. And with those contacts and those relationships, it was pretty easy to do. And there was nobody else addressing that market space really well from an advertising, branding, marketing segment that really understood the culture and the lingo. So we became probably one of the most, at the time, the most sought after communications agency in HPC. And the biggest challenge I had was, I couldn't take on this company because we were representing the other company that was their main competitor. And it was a neat problem to have. We worked with dozens and dozens of companies over a decade and a half, including some international companies. So, from the early days there, multi-flow to Intel, and then into the marketing and communications agency, the Bernhardt Agency, and working with so many companies in HPC, and still staying actively involved in the Supercomputing Conference. That's it, 33 years of strategic marketing and communications in HPC.
Well, that's great, Mike. I know that you happen to be one of the perennials, one of the folks that's been to every single supercomputing conference. It's a rare breed. What are the big changes you've seen in high performance computing?
And by rare breed, I assume you mean old breed.
Yeah.
Yeah, the changes. So the changes that I've observed, the technology changes are always there in HPC. I mean, that's what's so exciting about this community. It's a market segment where the envelope is always being pushed, right? Even occasional paradigm shifts. So we remember the battles, the SIMD versus MIMD battles that were written up in magazines, these architectural wars. And remember the noise that was built around the hypercube, and then message passing discussions, and what can we do with the possibility of accelerators tacked onto these systems, new memory and disk technologies. That was just constant. So Rich, over time, it's a market segment that evolved. And if I were trying to recap, the biggest changes I've seen, it's been about attitude, it's been about communication style, it's been about how stories are told. The market segment itself has come all the way back around. And I think over the last few years in particular, tremendous respect in terms of marketing and storytelling. There's not a lot of hype, there's a lot of passion. We don't talk about my system's faster than your system. We talk about the systems in this market segment are going to change the world. That's what HPC is all about. So I for one, as a marketer who had to earn my stripes in marketing in that segment, I'm really happy to see where we are these days.
Well, great, Mike. So that's where we are. Where do you think HPC is headed? Is there any technologies that got you especially excited or concerned?
Yeah, I'd say glancing into the future, we've got so many possibilities on the radar, right? We're looking at artificial intelligence, we're looking at quantum computing. We're just starting to, I think, skim the surface of what we're going to be able to do with some of the accelerator technologies, coupled into these new systems. And what we've seen with the Exascale Computing Project in particular, the advancement of applying the technology to the science, and people taking a fresh look, getting a fresh perspective on how they even approach the science, knowing that they have that kind of technology available to them, is going to change everything. But if you just take a few of those examples, use AI and use quantum as just two examples of what the future might hold, it's going to come down to how do we manage it appropriately? How do we identify what we're going to do with it? Can they really have the impact that we think they can have? Time will tell. But when we start to bring them into reality, how do we manage them? And then in some cases, how do we deal with some of the ethical decisions and discussions that evolve around those things, in machine learning and artificial intelligence in particular? So there's some big challenges, but with big challenges come tremendously big opportunities. So I think what I find most exciting overall is just in general the exploration of the most leading edge areas of computation and how to connect the technology to scientific discovery, and how to help for the marketers that come along, the communication specialists, how do you help the companies and the organizations tell those stories for mass appeal and for mass understanding? In many ways, it's undoubtedly the most exciting time that we've seen in years. We're just starting to skim the surface, and the results that are coming back already are just mind-blowing. So, wow, where's it all going to go? As long as we keep control of ourselves, it's all going to be good.
You bet. Well, Mike, any closing thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, thank you. I think, working with the Exascale Computing Project, which has absolutely been a highlight of my career, such a dedicated and talented, motivated team. The passion that comes along with the entire HPC community, Rich, is something that makes this segment and everyone in it unique. I think from a career standpoint, and the note that I'd like to leave this with, some of the folks that are coming into the HPC community or considering it for the first time, hear something like this. This next generation of technology and scientists should take a serious look at planting their roots in this community, in HPC. It's always been fascinating and rewarding, but it's never been more exciting than it is right now, with so much to be discovered and so much impact that can be made on the world. It's just a great place to be. I'm really thankful to be a part of it.
Well, Mike, we sure appreciate your efforts at the Exascale Computing Project and the HPC User Forum. So I want to thank you once again for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Rich. I've enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you in person again one of these days. I hope soon.
Yeah, like an in-person beer would be really good. So we'll look forward to it. All right, folks, that's it for this Rich Report. We'll see you next time.